Fellow Central School District Board of Education Annual Budget Hearing for this evening, Monday, May 11th, 2026. At this time, I'm going to invite some very special guests of ours. Mr. Eady, would you like to introduce our special guests?
We'd like to welcome our fourth grade Weeblo Den up to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So we have many of our members joining us today. Come on, guys.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicely done, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Each year before the budget vote, the Board of Education is required to conduct an annual public hearing regarding the school district budget. In a moment, I'll be turning the meeting over to the permanent chairperson, Mayor Chad Clark, who will conduct the annual budget hearing and election. So at this time, resolve that the Board of Education approves the appointment of Mayor Chad Clark as permanent chairperson for the 2026 annual budget hearing and vote. May I have a motion? Amy?
Second, Jen.
Second, Jen. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor Clark, the meeting is now yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I first would like to ask for the record that the meeting minutes from last year's budget hearing on May 12th, 2025 be read by Colleen O'Leary, our district clerk.
Thank you. Referring to the minutes of last year's meeting, after the welcome and pledge of allegiance, Mayor Chad Clark was appointed as the permanent chairperson who was to conduct the annual budget hearing and election. There was a motion made by Amy Bartolotta and seconded by Catherine Branson Dennis that the board appoint Mayor Clark as the permanent chairperson. Mayor Clark reviewed the rules of conduct for the meeting, after which Mr. Charlo read it all and made an introduction to the annual budget meeting presentation and explained the purpose of the meeting. Mrs. Charlo and Mr. Sinaccio reviewed the budget details, including propositions and an introduction to the Board of Education candidates to be included on the ballot. The floor was open to the community for questions, which were addressed by Mr. Sinaccio. The minutes of the previous year's meeting of May 13th, 2024 were read by the district clerk, and an introduction of the Board of Education, Administration, and Board of Education candidates was made by Mayor Clark. A motion was made by Sean Eady and seconded by Catherine Branson Dennis to adjourn the meeting at 6:50 p.m. Thank you.
As in the past, I want to review the rules of conduct that we will follow during this meeting. First, all remarks should be directed to the chair, who will decide all questions of order. Second, I would like to remind everyone to be courteous in language and deportment. And third, please avoid all personalities and do not allude to others by name or motives. During the questioning period, which the superintendent will moderate later in the program, we'll ask anyone who wishes to ask a question to state his or her name so that the district clerk will be able to take accurate minutes. Let me start with some introductions of the school board, school administrators, and the board candidates. The current members of the school board include Christine Shea, our president, Sean Eady, the vice president, Erica Baquatic, Justin Pritchard, Amy Bartolotta, Jen Tedesco, Kelly Rossiter, and our student board member Tucker Burnett, who is not with us at the moment. Our school administrators include Jean Charlo, superintendent, Don Weber, the school business executive, Julie Darmody Latham, the director of special education, Michael Freed, the director of athletics, Michael Dingman, the director of technology, Brian Riefler, the director of facilities, Amy Mitchell, director of food service, Jackie Pierce, our director of transportation, and principals Lauren Massa, Kathy Mahoney, Stephanie Rice, and Brian Seavey. Before introducing the candidates for the school board, I would note that this is not a time for any of the candidates or their supporters to campaign for a school board position. There are 3 seats and 3 candidates. 2 seats are 3-year terms and 1 seat is a 2-year term. The candidates with the top 2 votes will assume the 3-year terms, and the lowest will assume the 2-year term. This year's candidates for the school board are Peter Chapman, Sean Eady, and Jessica Johnson. The budget details and propositions will now be reviewed by Jean Charlo, our superintendent, and Don Weber, our school business executive. Mrs. Charlo and Mr. Weber will moderate the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for being here, especially our smaller guests. We're thrilled you're here. We're grateful that you're here to learn about the 2026-2027 Marcellus Schools budget. Last week, all taxpayers should have received at their homes the Marcellus Schools budget newsletter. And if you did not, or you misplaced it, this information is also on our website. If you go under About, right on the homepage, you click About and go to budget information. It is on the right-hand side under the 26-27 school budget information. There's a line that is for the budget newsletter. So tonight, Mr. Weber, who will be coming up in a second, Mr. Weber, our school business executive, and I will be providing an overview of the 26-27 school year budget and really our process in its development. We encourage you to ask questions and engage with us as we go through. If there's anything that you're curious about or don't understand, please ask questions. And if you're anything like I am, you will leave here and think about a question. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can call the district office. Don or I are happy to talk through whatever questions that might come up after tonight. And we'll be sure to display our contact information at the end of the presentation. So before we launch into specifics about the budget, I do want to just display this slide. Honestly, this collage of all of our students' pictures and the programming that they're involved in is why we do what we do. We are committed to offering excellent programming, and we allocate our funds appropriately to do that. And so we'll talk a little bit as we go through this presentation just about the decision-making in aligning those funds to match our commitment to students and student experiences here in Marcellus. So these are various terms that you're going to hear throughout the presentation tonight, and Don and I will define them as we go. And in addition to defining them so you understand what they mean, we will also put them in context of what they mean in relation to our budget for 26-27. And so let's just start with some of the fast facts of the budget. So our school year budget for 26-27 is $43,330,431. That is essentially what the budget that we put forward for 26-27 is going to be. You will see here on this slide at the first bullet, we are still relying on what's called an appropriated fund balance. That's about $1.5 million. And so that is essentially a pool of dollars that is set aside really for the purpose of funding unforeseen circumstances. So if you think about your own household budgets, I'm sure from time to time you have a washing machine breakdown or your hot water heater. And so that in a school district is exponential, the things that can happen. And so that amount of 1.5 million really helps us if we have an expense in the budget that raises, we can allocate those funds there just to help mitigate. So the tax levy increase this year is 2.7%. And that is essentially what's allowable. And we simply need a simple majority to pass that. Something that I think some people don't necessarily understand or are confused by is this 2% cap. I think some people say, well, if the cap is 2%, why is it 2.7? You're going above the cap. That is actually not the case. So The 2% cap is basically, it's a 9-step formula that Don has to actually send to the New York State Comptroller. And part of that formula is either the lesser of CPI or 2%. So it's simply, in the case of CPI or 2% this year, CPI is much higher, so we had to plug in 2% into that 9-step formula. And when we put that 2% in, the tax levy increase was 2.7%. So you will see the total amount that we're, with the tax levy is a little over, well, probably $23,669,873. That is the amount that we will levy from the community to fund the schools. And like I said, we'll need a 50% simple majority to pass. And so something else that you will see on the ballot is 3 propositions. One is the school budget, which I sort of just gave the overview, but also the purchase of transportation vehicles. And so we have what's called a replacement schedule. So we have really a plan for 10 years in the running of when we're going to be replacing school buses. Because again, you don't want to find yourself where you have, you know, a fleet of defunct buses and you haven't planned well. So we have a replacement schedule that we are continuing to follow, and Don is going to talk a little bit later about some of the specifics of what we're putting forward on the proposition. But I do want to just emphasize, because I think every year this has been some confusion. The proposition that we have going forward for the purchase of school buses are for gas buses. We are not purchasing electric buses at this time. There's a lot still to be determined with electric buses. And what I am hearing is that there is going to be a push of that mandate. Right now it's 2035, and I'm hearing they're going to push it to 2040, potentially 2045. So I just want to emphasize that so that there's no misinformation about that. And then the library levy. So by law, if there is a public library in the boundaries of a school districts have a legal requirement to put that proposition forward to the voters. So that is what we will do. Really, we're assisting our public library, and I know many of you in this room appreciate having that resource. And so to some extent, we're a vehicle for the library to also collect their funding. And so on the revenue side of our budget, just so again, people have an understanding, you saw the amount that we plan to levy. But when you think about the revenue that a school district receives, there are really 2 main sources of revenue. And so one is state foundation aid, and the other is expense-driven aid. So honestly, when you spend money, the state will reimburse you a portion of what you're spending on different resources. And so those are the 2 main areas that we get aid from the state: foundation and expense-driven aid. And that accounts for about 39% of our overall revenue. And then our tax levy is about 54% of the overall budget. And again, Don will go over that more specifically. So I'm sure probably everyone in this room has heard that funding across New York State for schools is diminishing. And one of the reasons for that, plain and simple, is that enrollment across New York State in probably most schools, enrollment is declining. And Marcellus is no different. Our enrollment has declined significantly over the past 10 years. And so the sentiment is that the state says if you don't have kids in the seats, then you don't need as much money. And so we are really struggling with just making sure that we're making smart choices, but also being very fiscally responsible as we're seeing this picture not really improving for the next few years. And so that being said, you can see some of the increases that we're expecting. gas, electric, sewer, insurance, no different than many of you in your households. Costs of things are going up. What I do want to just show are the things that we sat down as a administrative team and really crunched numbers. We looked carefully at anybody that was retiring. We asked the question multiple times, do we really need to replace that person? And again, all thinking about programming and making sure we're not negatively impacting programming. And so you will see we have about 6 total reductions that we made, and then some reductions that we made through attrition. So some we made that teachers who really just don't have full schedules, and then others that we cut through attrition. And it is not just in the instructional area. We also looked at our technology department, where can we get some savings there? And so I am going to ask Don Weber to come up, and he will take it from there.
You. My name is Don Weber. I think some of you in the room know me, but many don't. So I'm the new school business executive here at Marcellus. This is my first year doing the budget, and first year in the district, although I've lived in the district for nearly 15 years now. I'll take you through the budget process. I'm going to start with this slide. I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds with some of the numbers. So I would like to encourage anybody who has questions to just raise your hand. I think it'd be easier if we do this more as a conversation, other than just reciting numbers to you all. So if I say anything you don't understand, have a question, please stop. When the initial budget was put together in January, the way I developed the budget really was to try to estimate what would it cost us next year to maintain all the same services that we have. So we did.
I think you go back, we're having trouble hearing, so just a little.
Oh, no. So with the budget development, I tried to estimate what would it cost us next year to maintain all the services we had last year, without really adding anything. With the price of just everything going up, we have contractual increases with our employees and things that school districts need to pay for, not fun things. I think, like you saw on the previous slide, gas, electric, and other utilities. But really, it was going to be about a $2.5 million increase just to maintain the things that we already had. We were seeing less than $1 million increase in state aid, so that left us with the initial budget gap of just under $1.5 million. I think the district here, and maybe not some other places, we do a very good job of living within our means. So we look at how much money we're going to bring in, and that determines how much money we spend. Don't have a heavy reliance or a history of relying on fund balance and reserves to pay the bills here. We're not living off our savings account historically. And that's a good thing. That's what you want to do in a school district or in any government, really. So diving a little bit into the numbers. We started the year with a gross increase in contractual increases for salaries. So our employees, many of our employees are unionized, so they have increases that are built already into their agreements. So we know what their wages are going to be next year. Initially, that had a gross increase of 1.2 million. That wound up being an increase in this final budget of about 550,000. So we had to find. We had reductions of 8 staff that amounted to $664,000. That we got that down $550,000. We had increases in employee benefits of over 300,000, and then I think you saw on the previous slide increase gas, electric, and sewer. Our utility prices are expected to go up about 30%. We're part of a consortium through BOCES. So we purchase our utilities on contract with them. So we sort of know what our prices are going to be in the future. We're not as susceptible to fluctuations. We were able to lock in early in September. So we know what those prices are going to be within reason for the foreseeable future. But again, we know, just as you know at home, that those prices are going to go up. We also are expecting, this is kind of typical, some increases in insurance costs. So this slide just kind of attempts to give you a picture of, where do we stand with our peers? You'll notice there aren't a lot of names on this slide. That's kind of the professional courtesy that school business officials give each other. They don't, like to call each other out in public. But these are the full value tax rates of other school districts in our area. So where do we fall? So we're in the bottom half there. You may notice that tax rate doesn't necessarily reflect what's on your individual tax bill. I'm gonna get into that a couple slides from now, but there are 6 towns in this school district. And not every town assesses property at the same percentage of value. Some towns assess close to 100, and we have one town that assesses at just over 1% of value. So you have a house that's worth $100,000 in one town, you could be assessed at 100,000. And in the other town, your assessment would be $1,000. So the tax rates will vary widely within a district. So this brings all those rates up to 100, so you can kind of see them on an even plane. The proposed budget for 26-27, you'll see this in the budget newsletter. The state really requires that you break this down to display for our property owners. So you can see how much of the budget, overall budget, is going towards administrative expenses, which are the cost of the administrative team, buildings, operations, and principals, those sorts of things. How much is dedicated to program and how much is capital. Program are, of course, just what you think program would be, our teachers and student-driven expenditures. And capital are really our facilities. What are we paying for buildings? We have loans that we've taken out to do building projects over the years, paying that back over time. That's about 20% of our total annual budget. I think in central New York, as far as the administrative percentage of the budget, I think we are really pretty efficient. Under 10% for this part of the state is pretty good for a small school district in upstate New York. So that is really pretty efficient. So we talk a lot about expenditures, the money going out. This slide's going to talk some more about the money that's coming into us. And it comes in really from 2 main sources. It's state aid and property taxes. And you can see the difference there in 25, 26, 26, 27. Not a whole lot more money to the district from New York State. So 16.6 million almost last year, 16.8 million this year. So not a big influx of money from the state of New York. Property taxes, if we go to the cap, 2.7%, we are going to the cap or proposing to go to the cap. We'll bring in $621,000. So an overall increase to the district of under $1 million. And that's really where we try to bring the spending at. If you're only getting $991,000 of new money, then the way that we do business and the way that we budget is you can only spend that much more money. We're not going to go propose to run the red. The other sources to the school district are pretty varied. The vast majority of that is appropriated fund balance, and as Superintendent Charlo said, that's really just the cushion that stays in our budget. You'll see it year after year for unforeseen expenses. We have kids that move into the district that need services. You have things that break that need to be fixed that we couldn't necessarily budget for ahead of time. You need to have a little bit of cushion in the budget, the same way you would have an emergency fund, at home. Then we have the other large part of that really is interest earnings on money in our savings account. That's the other largest revenue source there. So this slide, we're gonna attempt to estimate, talk a little bit about property taxes. This is gonna get confusing. I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, because property taxes are a little bit confusing. So for 2025-26, this is estimating taxes on a property that's worth $100,000. And the thing that I want to point out, and I'm gonna say more than once, is that this slide is misleading. No, I don't think hardly anybody's taxes will go down. The reason that it says the difference there for a property worth $100,000 is gonna go down $171. Is that in most cases, the value of your property has gone up from last year to this year. If your property had actually stayed worth $100,000 from last year and this year, the assessor would have lowered your assessment, right? Which means in that case, your taxes will go down. So it's kind of hard. The state really mandates that we try to explain this information, but so little of it is known ahead of time. But you do have a pretty good idea, or I do have a pretty good idea what I think the tax rates are going to be in August. Each town assessor files their assessment roll or their tentative assessment roll on May 1st of each year. So I know, or they have stated, what their level of assessment or their equalization rate is going to be in each town. In Camillus, you'll see that second under the actual there. Camillus assessed property gets 69% of value for 25-26. And New York State is saying that those assessments now represent property at 61% of value. Which means what? In theory, or really in practice, the assessor hasn't gone out and changed very many assessments. Unless people have built something. They put a deck on, they put a barn up. Those are really the only houses that are getting increase in their assessments for the most part. So if you live in Camillus, your property assessment hasn't changed, but your house is now worth more. So it means there's been appreciation. You can see in Marcellus, it went from 68% all the way down to 58%. That's a change of almost 15%. So the state of New York thinks that property values in Marcellus have appreciated across the board by 15%. And that's true all the way down through every town there. You can see Atisco was the one I mentioned earlier. They assess property at about 1% of its total value. And they choose not to assess property at full value. So their tax rate is much, much higher. So the tax rate in the town of Atisco, $1,275.96 for every 1,000 that you're assessed. It's confusing. I see it. I see some confused spaces, which is why on the slide earlier, we talked about the true, full value tax rate or the tax rate on true. Every town in our district has a different actual tax rate. So every tax bill, the 6 different towns has a different tax rate. So to kind of equalize them, that's why we use that tax rate on true. And you can see in some towns on the far right hand side, taxes on $100,000 house. If your assessment stayed the same, some of them are going up, some are going down. The reason that is that the state of New York thinks that property values in some towns are appreciating faster than property values in other towns. And that full $23 million that we're proposing to levy for the school district gets divvied out amongst those 6 towns based on the full value of the property in the district. So they're like slices of a pie. So some slices got bigger this year based on New York State's estimate of their percentage of our district as a whole compared to last year. Contingency money. So what happens if the budget fails? There is a contingency budget in place, or there will be a contingency budget in place if the budget were to not pass. The contingency budget takes out any non-essential equipment across the entire budget. That's about $87,500. That will be removed. Non-contractual salary increases would also be removed. That would be another $221,000. So if the budget were to fail, it would be reduced by just about $300,000. That would be our budget. It could be reduced further if the school board elected not to use fund balance to left by the property tax levy. So if we were not, we're proposing the 2% increase is $623,100. The initial contingency budget would assume that that gap gets filled from reserves. If the school board elected not to do that, the alternative would be to reduce the budget even further by another $623,000. So that takes us through this year's budget. The money we're proposing to spend for 26-27. This is a history of reserves. This is, for lack of a better term, just our savings account. How much money do we have in the bank? Employment insurance reserves, $28,386. You can see many of these amounts haven't changed very much over the years. And again, that's because we don't rely on our savings to pay our bills. We try to live within our means. The capital reserve was the money dedicated for that purpose. Instead of borrowing money, we saved money over the years when we wanted to build new repairs to our buildings or build a new building. So we didn't have to borrow as much. We saved it and spent it out of our savings account so that we didn't have to pay a mortgage payment on it into the future. As you can see, some of that money going in and coming out as projects get done. Retirement contribution reserves, that's money that can be allocated to offset the cost of pension, really contributions to the pension system. It changes from year to year, largely to do with the performance of the stock market. But we are required to pay into the teachers' retirement system and the New York State employees' retirement system percentage that changes annually, really depending on how well the stock market is doing. We were fortunate this year that rate went down from last year. It was just over 8% of every employee's salary for teacher retirement system. This year, or last year, it was over 10%. So that kind of, in a tight budget year, that really did help us a little bit this year. Employee benefits reserve, that's also referred to as LR, that's for paying out employees time that they're owed or money that they're owed for sick and vacation time where they leave, but we haven't had a need to dip into that. Unappropriated fund balance is our fund balance for savings for not any particular purpose. That's allowed to be up to 4% of your total budget. We're well within that, 987,000 this year. That has no designated purpose, but it's our rainy day fund. And the appropriated fund balance there, 1.5 million, that's the amount. It's also, it's considered part of our reserve, but it's really part of our annual budget. But it is money that we have for our use. So aside from the budget, the other propositions that residents will be voting on this year are for the purchase of school buses. There are going to be 3 35 passenger buses, 1 36 passenger bus, a wheelchair bus, and 1 10 student van, at a maximum cost of $867,000. Our buses are on a 10-year replacement cycle. So we have just under 40 total vehicles. We try to replace 4 every year. In the past few years, we were purchasing diesel buses. We're moving now towards gas buses. The maintenance costs on the gasoline buses, are just lower. Staff time and in terms of fixing them, we are not proposing to purchase electric buses. And the third proposition on the budget vote will be for the library. That's on behalf of the library. They're proposing to increase their total levy by just under $15,000 and within the tax cap as well. The budget vote again is Tuesday, May 19th. We've got 3 vacant seats and 3 candidates for those seats. Mr. Peter Chapman, Mr. Sean Eady, and Jessica Johnson. The qualifications to be a voter for the budget, you have to be a district resident, you have to be a citizen of the United States, at least 18 years of age, and you have to live in the district for at least 30 days prior to the date of the budget vote. So you don't have to own property, you just have to live in the district. Anybody have any questions?
Something I do want to mention is, we've constructed this budget before New York State has even passed their budget, which is really challenging for school districts because I think we predicted that we'll get 2%, which is what we've been hearing, but we won't know for sure probably until after the vote on the 19th. But again, I think that's worth noting that we're still waiting to hear from the state really what our aid is really gonna be for certain. Any questions?
Yes.
I'm David Zuber. I'm wondering, I was looking at your production workforce this year to make up for your budget gap. That's kind of a one-time fix. What are you planning on doing going forward?
I think year to year, we're gonna look at what our step, again, depending on where the budget is next year, again, we're hearing that it's gonna be challenging. Like every year, we look at it and figure out where we can make reductions that will not impact our programming. And so, to be honest with you, it's something that I can't even predict right now until we're in that situation next year. But this whole process starts in October, November. And we start looking at all of our staffing, we look at our enrollment, and start making those predictions. We are committed to keeping our class sizes at the elementary level low, in comparison to other districts, honestly. That is an area that if something is catastrophic down the road, is something we would need to consider. But can we really keep class sizes as low as they are? I'm committed to. But until we really are faced with another challenge, it's hard for me to predict because I just don't know yet what the staffing and enrollment needs will be in a year from now. But I am hoping and praying that we don't have to do anything drastic that impacts programming. Any other questions? Anybody in the front? Any questions? Great. Well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate just being able to, this has been really a lot of hard work, not just by Don and myself, the entire administrative team that's here tonight. A lot of sleepless nights that, trying to make sure that we're doing, right by kids and following our mission. And not easy decisions, but we feel good about where we are and again, being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. That is also something that is incredibly important to us as well. So thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our annual public budget hearing. And so at this time, I will adjourn our meeting. Resolve that the annual budget public hearing be adjourned. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Justin.
Justin?
Motion.
Kelly, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so now at this time, we will move on to our regular Board of Education meeting, Monday, May 11th, 2026. And if I could have our special guest join us again for the Pledge of Allegiance to open up this meeting, that would be great.
Things. Which stands one nation, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
And we'll begin this evening with recognition.
Yes, we have lots of recognition. So, I just want to give a huge shout out to Claire Chase, and really the whole community that rallied around us to, help us implement, the mock DWI simulation. It was the first time that we did this, I think, in 15, 16 years, and, it really was an extraordinary event, and, I think really sort of hit home for our students, the seriousness of drinking and driving, and just incredible. I mean, I think the shot of the helicopter landing, it really, you felt like you were on the scene of a real crash, and all the students who were actors, it went off beautifully. And again, all to Claire Chase and her coordination of so many different things to make that happen. So thank you again, Claire. Teacher Appreciation Week was last week, and here are just a couple shots. You can see parents from the KCH PTO, DMS PTA, and some of our high school parents there serving our teachers all sorts of treats last week. So just a huge thank you to our parents who support us and support our teachers during that week. It's interesting because I look around at what our PTO and PTA does. There was even a masseuse on campus, so just incredible, really grateful. Skills USA, so there was recently a Skills USA competition at the fairgrounds, and all of the students that you see there competed. I do want to just give a huge shout out to Dominic Dubar. He came in first place in cabinet making and was qualified for nationals. So just incredibly, you can see his cabinet there that he put forward for the competition. Extraordinary talent. Sixth grade play. So we had the sixth grade play last weekend, and it was amazing. And something that you may not know are we had high school students that were really the force behind the whole play. They wrote, directed, got all of the students in sixth grade set up to do the lighting and all of the background, the crew. So just an amazing job by our high school students. And again, I really believe we have such an amazing program here with drama, and it's because of exactly things like this, the sixth grade play. Our Seal of Biliteracy students, they competed a couple weeks ago, and you can see them all here. This was right before they left for the competition. And if you remember, they actually present their presentation in their target language, and they are often asked questions by teachers in the language, their target language, and so they have to respond in the target language. Something to know, and I was actually there that day, and something that is a difference between Marcellus and all the other schools, our teachers prepare our students without notes. So our students get up there without note cards, they get up and they do their presentation. 100% of our students reached the Seal of Biliteracy. They will be on hand June 8th at our board meeting, June 8th, just to do just a short mini part of their presentation. And then the third grade play, I do want to just shout out Dean Kloss and Janet Kranger. They are two retired teachers from KCH who we actually convinced to come back to do the third grade play. And I dare say, I think they thoroughly enjoyed it in their retirement. So these are just a couple shots. You can see Lauren Massa had a part. And what an amazing show. Again, a testament to why our dramas, and our plays are so wonderful. And then we had, two students compete, last week in the Central New York Association of Music Teachers Instrumental Competition. And there are 3 spots, and 2 of our students got first and second place. So Maddie Carver is a 10th grade student. She plays the flute. And Kat Benedetto is a 12th grader, and she plays the bassoon. You can see, Kat here pictures. But just what a win for our students, and a huge testament to the work that Wendy Wiley, does with those students. And then finally, Liz Milliken, I know I reported this out a few meetings ago. Liz Milliken actually won a New York State FCCLA award for Spirit of Advising. And what happens is at the state level, they put that forward to the national FCCLA, and Liz Milliken won the national FCCLA award for Spirit of Advising. She will receive that award in DC this summer. And that's it.
At this time, we'll move on to item number 3, presentations.
Yes, so just quickly, I know I've mentioned this before. A few weeks ago, Mr. Montgomery, myself, Brian Seavey, Tyler Cooper, and Heather Arcees attended an event at OCM BOCES. And it was a collaboration among school districts across central New York around the portrait of a graduate, New York Inspires, and the new graduation measures that we keep hearing about but haven't seen yet. So it was a great workshop. It really allowed us to have conversations about, well, we don't have the information yet on what the graduation measures are going to be or the guidelines. But we certainly spent a lot of time talking about the portrait of a graduate and things that we could start doing now with our staff and our students. And when you look at sort of these 6 attributes of the portrait of a graduate: academically prepared, creative innovator, critical thinker, effective communicator, global citizen, reflective, and future focused. And so our principals right now are presenting this to our staff, just so that we can start thinking about how can we get ready for these new graduation measures? What could we do, UPK all the way to 12th grade, to start infusing some of these things? You know, as simple as getting first graders up and used to presenting, even if it's just for a small amount of time. So those are the things that we're starting to think about in regard to just getting ready for what's coming from New York State. And as we receive the information about what those measures are going to look like, what those pathways are going to look like, we'll really start that work intently. And then the next presentation, I did ask both our elementary principal, Lauren Massa at KCH, and our DMS intermediate principal, Kathy Mahoney, just to report out on things that have been going on at their respective schools, and sort of a forecast of what's coming as we wind down the school year.
Everyone?
Oh.
We don't have any slides, so we're just gonna talk. So thank you for giving us the floor today to talk about what's going on in our buildings, most recently and then into the end of the year. At KCH, we're entering our final stretch with much to celebrate, so I'm just gonna recap for you. But our students and our teachers are not slowing down. We are continuing instruction every day. We are getting ready to do our end of the year benchmarking, and our teachers are already in the works for planning for next year. We're going to continue to focus on student growth and supporting all of our learners, but we have some fun mixed in there too. So you may have seen on social media that our kindergarten team did an inaugural egg drop. And all of our scholars worked to really creatively build contraptions that would protect their egg from cracking. The grounds and maintenance team were incredible, installed a barrier on the roof at KCH so that myself and Ms. Desso could go up and launch them. We went up first thing in the morning to test it out, and your vertically challenged principal could not actually reach over. So Ryan Riefler and his team quickly came and actually moved the entire thing forward with some contraption that they built themselves so that it could go off without a hitch. We invited families and community members, and the lawn was full. And students, were able to watch as their contraption was thrown over the roof. And then they opened it up to see if they had a survivor or a Humpty Dumpty, and they got a certificate either way, depending on how their egg fared. So it was a really great hands-on learning experience for our students that involved creativity and problem solving and a lot of community spirit. And the goal is that that becomes an annual tradition at KCH since it went off so well. Jean mentioned our first and third grade musical. Mr. Kloss and Mrs. Kringer came back out of retirement very gratefully and happily to do so with the help of Mrs. Patterson, our music teacher, and the production was incredible. And yes, it definitely made them fall in love with the theater and the arts, but it also helped them learn that everybody makes mistakes, their principal included, as I was rehearsing with them. And it developed teamwork and confidence, and definitely a love for the arts. So that was fantastic. We have lots of field trips coming up at KCH. I think this is one of the unique things about KCH. Our students have a ton of opportunities in district, but we also get them out of district as well. The KCH PTO picks up the local share of the costs for all of these field trips, so we're grateful to them for their support. So what we have coming up, UPK is going to Rowe Farms for the day. All 3 cohorts will go there and experience the farm. First, kindergarten will be going to the agricultural center here on campus. They're also going to the zoo. First grade is wrapping up hospital land visits. That's been a long stint because we really only take 1 or 2 classes at a time. And then they're also doing a new field trip this year to Green Lakes. They're doing the Animal Mysteries field trip, which some of them have already gone to and some of them are going to be completing. And they do things like look at trail cameras that the state park has at night. They look at animal traps. They go on a scavenger hunt. Our teachers and students have come back with some really great feedback from that. So again, I think that's something that we're looking to do in the future. Second grade is also going to Green Lakes, which is a new field trip for them this year. They are doing the erosion field trip. So they're actually going to build erosion tables and learn about the different ways that the park is using strategies to effectively mitigate erosion around the lake. So that should be great. No one's gone yet. They don't have feedback, but I went with my daughter last year and it was a great experience. So I'm hopeful that our KCH scholars experience the same. And then third grade has a whole slew of things for the end of the year. They participated in the Village Earth Day cleanup, which was the yearly thing that they do. They're also taking trips to the Historical Society, the Stedman House, and the Town Hall to sort of deepen their local history connections, which is a great thing I think about Marcellus, even with Rowe Farms. Like we sort of leverage the expertise and opportunities that we have here in the community. So lots of field trips planned for KCH. I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on Mustang Spark, which is our new extracurricular programming. Last year we did 1 session. This year we bumped it up to 2. So some facts and figures for you. We had over 30 clubs, about 33 clubs that were presented to our scholars over the 2 sessions. We had over 360 scholars participate total in both in the sessions, and we plan to expand this to 3 sessions next year. The feedback we have from our parents and our scholars is they appreciate the opportunity and they want to continue to see that to grow. So we're really grateful to our parents who volunteer to run clubs and our teachers here in the district that also do that. As far as end of the year school KCH happenings, we have our last all school assembly where we'll be focusing on the characteristic traits of enthusiasm and leadership and giving out awards to students who demonstrate those. The Marcellus Library is also visiting at that assembly to kick off their summer reading challenge. And we have a KCH cheerleading group that was run during Mustang Spark, and they are expected to bring some cheers and teach us that at our assembly. So much to look forward to there. And we have a couple annual KCH things that happen. We have our reading challenge, which if you've been following Mr. Montgomery in the role, he's done crazy things like kiss a pig and a frog. I don't know if I'll be kissing any animals, but I think he slept on the roof as well. Last year I did morning announcements on horseback and then rode onto campus. There is something planned this year. I can't really say because there are scholars in the audience and I can't have it get back to anybody. But we have something pretty exciting in the works over at KCH, so stay tuned for that. And we also have KCH Field Days, which is a big favorite of our students and we look forward to all year. So I just want to we appreciate your support. We have a lot going on and
Thank you.
And I share Lauren's enthusiasm and excitement as we celebrate the end of the school year at DMS Intermediate too. The kids, it's palpable, the kids are excited, you can feel it coming. And we are also preparing for our end of the year benchmark assessments and progress monitoring. We look forward to analyzing that data, not only to help our current students successfully complete the school year, but also to plan for next year's academics as well. The assessments help us to reflect on all of your growth. You guys have done a tremendous job this year, and it's nice for us to see that. And it also makes sure and ensures that we're continuing to help you guys all grow academically. In the spirit of planning for next year, we welcomed our rising fourth grade students and their families to DMS for formal presentations and introductions last week. The students and their families were able to take a self-guided tour of DMS. They spent some time getting to know the teachers, and the feedback from this event is always positive. The feedback I've received has almost consistently highlighted how it helps our youngest students transition into DMS. We all know that students learn best when they are comfortable, and this is just our first shot at helping our students transition in and feel comfortable in our building. Another shot at helping our youngest learners enter into our DMS Intermediate building is in partnership with our PCH third grade team. The third grade teachers take a fourth grade class, and the fourth grade teachers take a third grade class. And that gives our fourth grade teachers time with third grade to help them walk through the building, do an in-depth tour, meet all the players, the nurse, the counseling office. They come to the main office, they take time in the library and the cafeteria. And our fourth graders have the benefit of reconnecting with their beloved third grade teachers. And I know that the third grade teachers will give me feedback, like, I cannot believe how much they've grown over the past year. So it helps our fourth graders to reflect on all the learning, and it helps our third graders become even more comfortable in our environment. I'm continuing with fourth grade for just a little bit longer. They have been hard at work this year learning all about New York State history. They are looking forward to many upcoming field trips, but I'd like to highlight the Chittenango Landing field trip. There we'll get up close and personal, but not too close, right, to the Erie Canal. And they will deepen their understanding of the importance that the Erie Canal had on New York State's growth and economy. And what that does is it really helps to bridge that divide between what we learn in school and real life learning. So we're looking forward to that. Fifth grade, I'm not sure if you all heard it, but there was a collective sigh of relief last week as fifth graders finished their third state test. This again was not an easy testing season for us. The test was rather rigorous. All three of them were rigorous across all grade levels. And we once again, the New York State experienced just a little bit of problem with the platform. Through that though, our students, not only our fifth graders, but fourth and sixth as well, persevered and showed us what they were made of. They don't give up when things get hard, and that is very difficult to teach. So we thank our community for that. Those students are, all of them across the grade levels, showed resilience and determination. And we appreciate that very much. There has also been an audible buzz in fifth grade with the upcoming Wax Museum on the calendar. This is always such an incredible event for us. It's Thursday, May 21st. It feels like March, so excuse me, I got the frost alert tonight. This is a collaborative project that extends far beyond the social studies class. Our kids incorporate research, writing, presentation skills, literacy skills. We are very much looking forward to meeting all of their characters. We have Albert Einstein coming, and Amelia Earhart, Louis Armstrong, and many, many more. So if you have not been to that, then you can come to that. It is an incredible display. It's always exciting for our students, and it's always exciting for their families too. We're looking forward to the upcoming fourth, fifth, and sixth grade band concert and the fifth and sixth grade chorus concert. It's amazing to me, through lots of practice and the steady guidance of our amazing music teachers, our students learn how to collaborate, and they learn that individual responsibility that comes with learning songs and instruments. They create an incredible ensemble. It not only is a great display of our students and their growth musically, but it is also a great display of our commitment at Marcellus to the arts. And last but not least, our sixth grade students, they were part of a fantastic performance, as Jean said, the cat of the house over the weekend. And what truly makes that such a remarkable event is that it is almost entirely student run. We have an adult in the auditorium, but I have been in that auditorium many times and it is adult hands off. Our kids from sixth grade through 12th grade won that show. They did write it, they directed it. It was mostly seniors, but we had representation from freshmen on up. It is, for me, it's just, I love when our kids get to learn from our older students in the district. And we are very lucky that we have the campus that we have, to be able to facilitate that. It helps to foster experience, helps to foster that independence, unlike anything that our students get when they're standing in front of the teacher. So it's really incredible, the confidence that really shines through in their experience. Our sixth grade students also headed out into the community this past Friday to help some local organizations with spring cleaning. We had groups walk to the Stedman House, the Marcellus Park, the Town Hall, and Fred's Trail, as well as a group of students who were bused up to the Sycamore Hill Gardens. This is an experience that helps our kids realize the value of responsibility and service to others. Every teacher commented on how hard the kids work and their desire to help. It was a wonderful way to end the week and an important reminder again that learning takes place outside of our classroom walls. Just as we are preparing for our rising fourth graders, we are also preparing to say goodbye to our beloved sixth graders. So we have some activities that we're looking forward to this week with our sixth graders. We'll host the incoming seventh grade information night and then the sixth grade community dinner. For anybody who is not familiar with our community dinner, we invite families to come in and students to come in, and the teachers serve the students and me dinner, and there's a beautiful display of all the pictures that were taken throughout the year. It is just such a nice activity. We are able to just have conversations and enjoy the camaraderie, and it builds such an incredible community for our kids. We know that those relationships are necessary for a positive school experience, and we really are doing our level best to make sure that our kids have lasting memories of DMS Intermediate. We at DMS would also like to extend our thanks for your continued support. Our kids are so very fortunate to have every adult in the community rooting for them on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentations for this evening, and this time we'll move on to residents' comments. Public expression at the Board of Education meetings is encouraged, and a specific portion of the agenda shall provide for this privilege. In most instances, the board shall reserve judgment regarding questions and concerns that are brought to the board's attention at a board meeting, as it is typically not prudent for the board to make instantaneous determinations. In addition, many issues that are brought to the board's attention do not require a formal determination by the board, but instead are most appropriately addressed by the superintendent of schools or persons designated by the superintendent without further board action, in accordance with Board Policy 3220, Community Relation. Do we have any residents' comments at this time? All right, at this time, we'll move on to the business portion of our meeting. We'll look at item 5.1, the first reading of board policy. Resolved that the Board of Education approves first reading of the following board policies. Policy 3290, operation of motor-driven vehicles on school property. Can I have a motion? Jen? Second, Erica? Questions or comments before we vote?
So, this policy really isn't changing drastically. The only thing that we're adding is e-bikes and e-scooters. As you could imagine, on a campus this large with all of the parking lots and student drivers, it really is terrifying when you see e-bikes weaving in and out. And truly, one of the other things that I have seen, and I've stopped students at dismissal at KCH, and you have just the little ones walk into their bus, and you know how little kindergarten UPK are, their eyes are up in the air. And so that's an issue too, where the e-bikes are coming through during that type of dismissal. So, I appreciate e-bikes. There's a time and place, and I think to protect the district and protect our students and drivers, that we really have no choice but to put in that they are not allowed on campus to be used on campus. So one of the questions I had is we have a staff member who rides their e-bike, no problem. They just need to, once they're down on North Street, get off of the bike and walk it up, or disable the electric part of it. So I really do believe it's for the safety of everybody that comes to campus, because anybody here who's driving would feel horrible if they hit a little biker that was on an electric bike, and sometimes they just come out of nowhere because they're going so fast.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.2, approval of boys ice hockey combination with Syracuse City School District. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the boys ice hockey athletic team combination between Marcellus Central School District and Syracuse City School District for the 2026-2027 school year. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Justin.
Justin?
Second.
Second, Sean. All right, any questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 5.3, approval of girls swimming and diving team combination with Skinny Atlas Central School District. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the girls swimming and diving team combination between Marcellus Central School District and the Skinny Atlas School District for the 2026-2027 school year. Can I have a motion? Me.
Second.
Second, Erica. Questions or comments before we vote?
So this is really the only one before you, the combination that's different than what we've done in the past. We have had 2 to 3 students in the past couple of years swim at Skinny Atlas. So, but they were considered a separate team. They were our Marcellus team. We are now combining, so it will be a joint team, and diving gets added to that. One of the reasonings for that is the enrollment in swimming and diving and in Skinny Atlas has declined. So they invited us to combine officially. And honestly, it just opens up opportunities for our students.
Sure.
And, it's a great opportunity.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.4, approval of girls wrestling combination with West Genesee Central School District. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the girls wrestling combination between Marcellus Central School District and Syracuse City School District for the 2026-2027 school year. Can I have a motion? Jen?
Second,
Kelly? Questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.5, approval of varsity wrestling combination with Onondaga Central School District. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the varsity wrestling athletic team combination between the Marcellus Central School District and Onondaga Central School District for the 2026-2027 school year. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Sean.
Amy? Questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.6, ratification of contract with Marcellus Transportation Employees Union. Resolved that the Board of Education ratifies the tentative agreement between the Marcellus Central School District and Marcellus Transportation Employees Union for the period of July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2030. Can I have a motion? Jen?
Second,
Kelly? Questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to item 5.7. Approval of benchmark advance as the as the K through 5 English Language Arts Program. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the adoption of Benchmark Advance as the K through 5 English Language Arts Program written by Benchmark Education Company. The contract will be for 7 years at an approximate cost of $375,239 to be paid for in 5 installments. Can I have a motion?
Motion, Erica.
Erica,
Second,
second Justin. Questions or comments before we vote?
I just wanna sort of reiterate what I mentioned last time. The last time, that we adopted a program was over 10 years ago, an ELA program, and we are honestly, in my estimation, in dire need. To be up to date with the science of reading. We are doing a lot of that work, the science of reading, but in an ancillary way. And so, again, I appreciate Bob Montgomery sort of took up the charge this year, in making sure that our teachers have the opportunity to pilot Benchmark Advance. And one of the things too, you'll notice here that, we are gonna be paying for it over the course of 7 years, so Bob worked diligently with the publisher just so that we could do that. And rather than, we recognize the budget constraints, so it's really gonna be coming out of textbook funding, the budget line over the course of that number of years. So I think it will be an incredible improvement to what Wonders was, because we've, again, like I said, we've been using that for over 10 years at this point, and I think we're at a juncture where we need that and move forward. Bob, I don't know if there's anything specific you want to add, just about your belief that that's the program for us.
Sure, our teachers were well poised to make the decision about a curriculum because in 2019, we started our work at KCH on the science of reading. So the teachers came equipped to evaluate a program to make sure that it was the best match for us. So we were well poised to make such a big decision, and I congratulate them all on making that trek this year, because it was not easy. But we are poised so that they can lead their teams into next year, where there's a lot of work that's already been done to customize and work through the curriculum pieces as they are.
And I know your committee was very thorough and explored several different programs and met with other districts and got feedback from several different area thought leaders around the
That's still
programs that are out there.
ongoing. We'll develop a really good partnership with FM because they have this in their K4 buildings as well. So that'll help us to have a partner in that as well.
That's great. Any other questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item 5.8, approval of Town of Onondaga Tax Collection Agreement Extension. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the Town of Onondaga Collection Agreement Extension for the 2027 and 2028 tax collection periods. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Kelly,
Second, Justin.
Justin? Questions or comments before we vote?
Well, if you remember a few years ago, someone retired
Yeah.
in the town of Marcellus, so we shifted, we had to find somebody who would be willing to collect our taxes, and so we're simply just continuing that relationship with the town of Onondaga.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to personnel items. Approval of personnel items. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the following personnel items. You can see them there listed before you, items 6.1 through 6.4. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Amy, Erica? Questions or comments on any of those items before we vote?
The establishment of rates is something we typically do around this time. It really just helps Don and really all of us when we budget for summer help. We can do a better forecast by making sure we set those rates now.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to item number 7, consent agenda, approval of consent agenda items. Resolved that the Board of Education approves the following consent agenda items. You can see them listed there before you, items 7.1 through 7.6. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Sean? Is that Jen? Okay. All those, questions or comments before we vote on any of those items?
The only thing just to note is 7.1.2 is disposal of textbooks, and we were careful to add this obviously after the adoption of Benchmark Advance. That is a lot of our Wonders books that, you know, here we're gonna have a whole new program coming in, we need to make way for it, so that's what you see before you there.
Right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, at this time, we'll move on to item number 8, informational items.
So informational items, just a thank you again to our former 7th and 8th grade ELA teacher, Artie Scotty, for his donation. I don't know if you remember, but last year he donated $10,000 for the sound and lighting control booth at the new DMS auditorium, which really we got to live with the 6th grade play. We got to experience it really for the first time. That plaque right there, it has not been put up yet. They're just waiting there's a couple other things that need to be sorted out with the lighting. But the plaque is ready to be placed right at that sound and lighting control booth. And I know, Christine, that you have a letter
Yes.
from Art that you wanted to just read. that
I
you
did,
received.
yeah. Art sent a beautiful letter, and I thought it would be really nice to share it with the board and with the community. So he sent this to me on Tuesday, April 21st. President Christine Shea and Marcellus Central School Board of Education. These bright and sunny April spring days remind me of the first time I set eyes on Marcellus. I drove from SUNY Albany through the gorge from Camillus alongside a beautiful creek, a waterfall, the old Lower Crown woolen mill, and some late 19th century houses with bright flowers and adjacent to the school campus. I was immediately taken with the quaintness of the village of Marcellus. I interviewed with Principal Bill Groening and Assistant Principal John Dalton soon after which I accepted a position as 7th grade English teacher at Driver Middle School. It was the beginning of my entire 33-year career in education. My $10,000 donation to help with the renovation of the beautiful middle school auditorium is hereby dedicated to my students, their parents, my teaching colleagues, the entire staff that kept and still keeps the middle school running so well, and to all my neighbors and friends in the Marcellus community. They taught me as much as I taught them. I have fond memories of walking to raise funds for Baltimore Woods as secretary of the Marcellus Environmental Commission, being secretary on the Marcellus Free Library Board when it was in the old building, and being president of the Marcellus Community Council, as well as deacon and elder of the First Presbyterian Church. The middle school auditorium holds a particular place in my heart because it was here where I acted in and directed some plays for Marcellus Shirt Sleeve Theater, sang with the Marcellus Choral, and sang and acted with my colleagues to entertain the school and the entire community in various productions. All of this is why I still come back to see my friends 20 years after my retirement. I'm grateful for all that Marcellus has given me through all these years, and I'm privileged to be able to give something back. Marcellus is truly a great place to live, and that is why it occupies such a special place in my heart. I just wanted to, and that's from Art Scotty from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I wrote to him and I encouraged him to come visit us anytime he's in the area and enjoy the auditorium. And I thanked him for all of his service to our students and to our community.
That's a beautiful letter.
Mhm.
It's interesting just to hear the name Bill Groening, that's Groening Auditorium,
Yes.
so it is amazing to think that some of these people who some of our buildings are named for,
Yeah,
you know, weren't here too long ago.
yeah.
So thank you for reading that out loud. All right.
Okay. All right, at this time, we will end the public session of our meeting and move into executive session. Resolved that the meeting in public be adjourned and an executive session be convened for the purpose of discussion of personnel, contract negotiations and disciplinary action relating to a particular student. I have a motion.
Motion. Second.
That was Erica and Kelly. Great, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.